Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Psychic Perspectives. We took a little bit of a vacation there after doing this series on the clairs. And as we promised, we're back today and we want to talk a little bit about healing. That was something that you were kind of passionate on talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's been coming up a lot lately,
For you, right? Yeah,
in
for you.
cases. Yeah. And just in general, it's been a direction that I'm going more towards. So, I figured it was time to share what I've learned.
A great topic. Awesome. Well, and
Yeah.
too, it's really important for people that are, have psychic abilities. Healing is an aspect of a psychic ability. And sometimes people think, oh, I'm not psychic. I'm actually into healing. And I'm like, well, okay, but those are really the same thing. We're just doing it
Yeah.
a different way.
Right.
And then we're also going to talk about too, actually, psychic and mediumship actually is a healing modality as well. But we'll talk about that later in the show. So
Yeah.
as we get started, I know you had some things that you wanted to talk about. And I think one of the first things that I thought of well, what is healing? Because I remember back in the beginning when people would say, oh, yeah, I do a healing, I would just roll my eyes because it's like, well, what does that mean? Right. So,
Right.
I mean, I kind of know what I feel like it's meant to me over time, but what does it mean to you when you say you're offering healing or you're doing healing for a client?
Well, that's a really good question. What's funny is that I never identified as a healer, and healing ended up being a byproduct
Mm-hmm.
of what we were doing in astral. So even just the simple like removal of a spirit from someone, like an attachment, um, had tremendous healing side
Benefits.
effects, if
Yeah.
you will. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I was kind of shocked, like, oh, wow. So not only did they feel better energetically, but some of their ailments had disappeared.
Some of their physical ailments, you mean?
Right. So maybe it was fatigue, or maybe it was some kind of an emotional imbalance, or
Okay.
really prone to anger, stuff like that. And then upon removal of, whatever it was, they have relief. So to me, it's kind of a relief of whatever energetic bogging down you have. And I think that really is the main problem, is that it's based on an energetic level. So everything that we experience on the physical at some point starts in the energetic levels.
That's a really good description of healing. And I think that's kind of similar. What I came to over a period of time is that we tend to think of healing as affecting the physical body, which is true, but there's so much more to that. There's the emotional healing, there's the, even the brain and the mind that's going on. So, and you said even the energy level. So we talk
Right.
about affecting the human, whether it's the biofield or the subtle energies that are around us. Healing takes place at all of these very different levels. And I think you've mentioned this to me before when we were talking. It really kind of depends on what the person needs at that time. True. I mean, because
Absolutely. Right.
it's like or we're not when we're healing, we're not setting the intention, or are you when you're doing that?
Well, this is the thing. So at first it started off as just kind of a byproduct, and then it was like the more that I saw how it works, then it became more of an intentional thing. So for example, we did a curse. Well, it wasn't really a curse. It was kind of like some sort of psychic attack thing. But we ended up flushing this person with a lot of white light, and really focusing on the blockages that we could see in astral, which is, maybe dark spots, or just where the energy doesn't flow.
Okay.
Um,
So you were targeting that in that particular manner.
Well, I had no idea that this person didn't have function of their left hand. And then after we had done this healing, and it was between the two of us, so I'm not taking total credit, but
sure.
After we had done this work on it, he's like, oh my gosh, like my hand is feeling better. And it was much more
really
mobile.
interesting.
So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
And that wasn't your intention, but that was the byproduct. And I think that's the part of healing is that it's like,
yes.
You don't know what, I mean, isn't it true? You don't know what your recipient is always going to receive because it's what they need.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really, I mean, I can figure out what's wrong with people. Like I can kind of tell, maybe like the empathic side, be like, oh, you're having problems on your right side or your left side.
Sure.
So I can intuitively pick that up. But as far as like just honing in on people's individual physical ailments, that's not really my forte normally. So I don't know. I'm still learning. I am not Reiki professional trained or any of that. Like I said, this has just kind of been like a byproduct of the things that we have done in astral. And because of that is leading me into this path of healing, and I'm excited.
No, that's cool. And I think you're right. And I know that we talked about, we wanted to be really honest with the people that were watching, that neither one of us are healers per se. Right. Although I believe that the work that I do has a healing component to it. Exactly. And likewise for you as well. I think there are people that this is truly their specialty. And there's so many different modalities for doing healing that I think that we each kind of find our own way of being service to others. But right. So I don't want anybody to go, gee, I studied this and that's not the way I learned. Look, we're just kind of talking about our experiences. Psychic perspectives is sharing our perspectives and helping people just gain some insights, maybe about their own abilities as well. But we're not trying to come off as the professionals, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I had some reservations about it because I'm I'm not Reiki trained. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's, and it's like, even if someone is Reiki trained or psychically trained, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a skill set for it. So sometimes we evolve naturally with our skills and talents. So yeah. I think the last thing that I just kind of wanted to say about defining healing is it's interesting is how we go to Western doctors or Western medicine and we look for healing. And honestly, to me, I think a great deal of what happens is more symptom suppression than healing, right? And so healing is about resolving the underlying issue. And I think this was something that I kind of realized over a period of time as well, both from going to doctors for my own physical challenges, but also through my psychic work and that type of stuff is when we're doing healing, we're not trying to do symptom suppression. We're trying to heal the underlying issue.
Right.
Realizing that we don't really know what the underlying issue is, but we're still kind of putting something out there that's at least going to assist that person. And then we'll hopefully deal with some of those underlying issues. So I don't know. I guess I just thought that was important to say, is to recognize that for me, healing is about dealing at the underlying level, at getting to the root of the problem, not just, okay, you got a backache here. Let me help you get rid of that, because what's causing that? I think that also has value as well. I mean, do you agree with that? Do you feel how does that relate to you in terms of how you see healing?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think most Western medicine are Band-Aid solutions. And like you said, they suppress the symptoms and they don't get to the core of the problem. That's pretty typical. We see it a lot, right? I think what I've discovered since healing people is that it is much more based on a mental and emotional level as to what manifests these physical issues. Mm-hmm. And that might sound woo-woo or maybe unbelievable, but when you start talking about, quantum physics and stuff like that, it's actually not that far off, in my opinion, because I don't think we're properly schooled on how to, maintain our mental condition in a healthy way, to maintain our emotional state in a healthy way.
Very true. Very true.
And I think because of those things, when we hold them in, it will manifest in different places and in different ways in everyone. So that's why I think the energetic side of it may not be the whole answer. Of course, you're going to want to eat properly and get your exercise and stuff like
Right. The
that.
physical component still matters, of course.
It
Right.
still matters. It still matters. But I believe that the root of these physical issues come from these type of energetic problems, and they are easily fixable if we're aware. But if we're not aware, then we don't have any reason to look at that. Sure. And I think that Western medicine doesn't approach, or it doesn't acknowledge these things because maybe they don't want to, but that's what it is. That's what I've learned. So I think it's a combination of things, but definitely it starts at an energetic level.
Sure.
And it starts with us.
And I don't want to negate for people that said, look, I was in a tragic car accident, so this wasn't my emotional or mental state that caused that. And
right,
I think I just wanted to kind of put that caveat out there as well. Not trying to say that obviously you intended to have a traumatic accident. Things happen.
Or even cancer or anything like that. That's not an intention that anybody has, but it can be a byproduct of instability in the body,
or it can compound a situation, right? Or it can set up an environment in the body that allows we look at the current health crisis going on right now, and so much of what we talk about is needing to be healthy in order to not create the environment that allows disease to move into the body. So that's that personal accountability. And it does happen at both the mental and emotional level. I so agree with that. But it also has to happen at the physical level as well. Like you said, we need to be taking care of ourselves. We need to be, reducing the toxins in our body and making good food choices.
Right.
Things that we know, but we don't like to do.
Pretty much.
For all of us.
Yeah, I know. I fail in that area.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of discipline. It's difficult. It was really interesting too, because just last week I had a session with a gal, and she was very polite in allowing me to share a portion of her sitting, and she's edited out of that. But there was actually a doctor in spirit who had passed from the recent health crisis that we're dealing with. And he came through and had a message that he clearly wanted shared, not only for the sitter, but it was for myself, and then to share publicly as well, about how we are allowing our fear and anxiety to set up this situation in our body that makes us more vulnerable. We're talking about the choices that we are making, not just at the physical level, but he talked about the emotional level. So it's funny that we're talking about that today. And I'll put a link to it because it's actually on my personal channel as opposed to our podcast channel. Mm-hmm. Where he said now that he's in spirit, because he was a doctor when he was alive, but now that he's in spirit, he goes, I didn't realize how strong the emotional connection is to supporting our health. So it's really interesting that you say that. And then he shows up last week from spirit and going, had no idea. Right. Yeah. And he talks about people taking personal accountability. So anyway, I don't want to get off on that, but I think it's really interesting because it kind of segues into exactly what you're talking about, is that there's that emotional, even energetic component that sets us up for allowing disease to take hold in the body. So we don't want to get to that point. But
So, I mean,
it happens. We all do it, myself included.
Yeah. No, I know it's true. But again, that kind of goes back to every time I ever say grounding and meditation is number one. And that's why. Sorry.
Right. No. But those can be huge things for calming the mind, reducing anxiety, putting aside fear. It does create, it's been proven scientifically, all of the biological shifts that just something as simple as meditation does for people. So even if you don't like it for psychic development, it has positive benefits. Yeah. So let's get to, if we will, what was it that you really wanted to talk about your healing? Because I know you were like, you just felt really compelled that it was something that you needed to talk about and to share. So what is it that you feel most compelled that you want to talk about?
Well, I think we kind of, that what we're talking about right now is kind of it. The fact that that our physical ailments really do stem from this energetic vibration. And we are being bombarded right now with a lot of negative energetic vibrations everywhere we look. And it's getting real thick, I think. So I think right now it was important to talk about it because of the fact that we need to be aware that our thoughts and our emotions have this huge impact on our physical bodies. And right now, health is like the number one topic. Everyone wants to, be healthy and stay healthy, and it's super important. So that's why I wanted to talk about it.
Okay. And so knowing that, I guess I would say, at least for most of the people that I know, everybody is feeling things, right? The anxiety, the stress, we see the news, there's the concern about the health related issues that are going on, not just from this viral perspective, but just, even food and just general health issues overall. So you're right. We are being bombarded. And I think most people are aware of that. So the question becomes, well, what do we do about it? What's the resolution? What's the solution? Because we can talk about it all day and people go, yeah, I know, but what do I do?
Right.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts and suggestions at that level?
Well, so
besides grounding and meditation.
Yeah, that's number one. No. Okay. So I would start by saying, the mental condition. So how much are you intaking of this negativity and, I just current events and I'm guilty of it myself.
Sure, who isn't,
right? Just being really enthralled into it. So take a step back and understand that I think what makes us go so crazy is we feel like we don't have control over anything.
Right.
When really the illusion is that you've never had control over anything. And the only thing you do have control over is yourself.
Absolutely. Well said. Yep.
Right. So you take that equation out of it, and that should relieve some of it. I mean, it's not going to do everything because we still always worry about outside events and outside sources and stuff like that. That's not going to change so much. But when you just accept the idea that you don't have control over any of that, and the only thing you do have control over is yourself, that's at least a step, right?
Right.
The next step is, like I said, not bombarding yourself with all of this negativity, but really getting control over your thoughts. And yes, that includes meditation, but it's just this idea that you can acknowledge the fact that you're scared of something, or that you have concerns about something, but don't stay in that space. Don't dwell in that space.
And that's exactly what the doctor in spirit said just last week. He said, yes, people are afraid, but what good is it doing you?
Not anything.
It's doing you no good to be afraid. But it's easy to tell people don't be afraid because the fear is real, right? The fear is real. Let's face it. It's tough.
Danger is real. Fear is a choice, right? So that's true, because yes, there are dangerous things out there, but you choose whether or not to be scared of it. You really do. I that's how I feel about it. I have had to face my own fears.
Absolutely. Me as well.
And overcome them. And that's also a choice. I choose to face that fear and overcome it versus becoming a victim to it.
Very well said. Very well said. I agree with that 100%. And I really had to deal with that probably last year as well. It's like I got sick and tired of being afraid. I thought this is doing nothing but making me upset. I wasn't able to sleep. I was getting sick. I could feel myself feeling nauseous all the time. And I said, this is not helping me, and overall, I'm a pretty healthy person now. So I thought, this is not serving me. I could just feel it. And I finally said, how do I fix this? And so I think that's what you're saying that I know I want to express to people as well. It's easy to say, yes, we're afraid, but then don't choose to stay there. The next question becomes, okay, so you're right. I can't control it, even though I'm not happy about it or I'm fearful about it. How do I move into that other state? And I know for me, I started looking at, okay, so what's it going to take to be courageous? right? How do I have courage? How do I feel brave? And I started to watch and listen to people that were already exhibiting bravery or confidence. And that started making me feel more confident. So I started resonating with that type of vibration, if we will, right? People that were already in a state of bravery, people that were already perhaps in a state of courage or health or happiness, because then we can it bridges the gap for us.
Right.
And so those things in and of themselves can kind of become healing. So I guess that's just kind of my take on that. So we were talking about like what people can do to kind of help themselves with healing. So one, of course, is recognizing the interaction, choosing not to stay in that fearful state. I think making good physical choices are extremely important, more so now than ever. We understand with what's going on that having all of these other issues in the body sets us up for, other illnesses and other diseases. So, and you talked about thoughts, but I think thoughts and emotions kind of go hand in hand. So, I mean,
well, this is the thing. So it starts with the thoughts. So stop watching the news. Okay. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop bombarding.
Limit yourself.
Yeah. Limit is good, because we still need to stay informed.
To be aware, right? Yeah.
Or at least whatever. I'm not gonna. Well,
but make sure that you're also reading. Okay, so this is happening, but what's the solution to it? Right? Look for the positive sides of things.
Right. So just don't dwell in it. Don't bombard yourself. Don't constantly be consuming in fear bait. We'll just put it that way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then because what happens is, from the mental state and all of your negative thoughts that go through, that affects your emotional state. So if you're stressed out in your mind and you can't stop thinking about this, that, and the other, that's going to affect directly your emotional state. That's where it all starts.
And your emotional state affects your thoughts as well, because as soon as you become fear-based, that's an emotion. And then it starts feeding your mind, which says, oh my gosh, she's afraid. And then we start spiraling out.
Well, it can become, it
becomes a big circle. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes a big circle. Right.
Right.
A trap that you can't get out of. And that comes up so much in my sittings with people as well, where we're talking about what they need in order to transform or to heal. And we end up talking about what they thought was going to be physical stuff. And I'm like, you've got to get out of this circle. Here's what's going on for you at the mental and emotional level. And it's causing all kinds of physical responses in your body. So I see that in my sessions as well, even though I don't consider myself a healer, it still has healing, but it still has healing components to it if it's bringing awareness to the situation.
Right. And so the other part of that is now that your mental state and your emotional states are reeling, then what happens? What are you doing with that energy? Are you expressing that energy? Are you getting that energy out? Are you staying in that energy, or are you letting it manifest? So again, I think it's important for people to understand, I'm not telling you to not be scared. I'm not telling you to not acknowledge your emotions or to not worry about things.
Right. Because you have to acknowledge it.
We have plenty of things in life to worry about, but what are you doing with that? Are you solution oriented, or are you just staying there? And that's the point. So mental starts, then the emotional comes. What are you doing at that point? Are you processing the emotion and releasing it, or are you keeping it? Now, the physical
love that. Yeah.
The physical part can help, because if I'm angry, I'm going to go hit the punching bag and I'm going to get that anger out, and I'm going to feel better when I'm done. And then I'll have done some sort of physical activity as well.
Absolutely. It dispels that energy for you and put you through the body. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we have to think about ways to, I guess, just kind of keep that flow. And that's what it is. Because inevitably, when I'm healing people, I'm having to recreate their flow of energy, because there's a block, or there's a blanket or a cloud or something like that. And that's what it looks like to me in astral. So yeah. The whole chakra thing is important, because each one of those represent a different aspect of your spiritual self or your spiritual body. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's important. It's just that's why to keep the energetic flow is important, because otherwise it will manifest in a physical way.
It basically stagnates in the body. Yeah. And so that's the other reason. And I love that you brought up the point. You don't want to suppress the emotion. And I've had this come up before in some of the inspired lessons that I feel like I, either get from the Akashic field or from spirit sometimes, where it's like suppression of the emotions, even if they're negative, is the single worst thing you can do, because we have there, I've learned from spirit, there's no emotion that is negative. There are some that are uncomfortable and some that are very comfortable, but they all have value. And so we need to remember not to suppress particular emotions. If we feel a certain way, then we need to give it the space that it has, because then it's exactly what you're saying. Suppression is keeping the energy locked around and inside the body, whereas allowing that emotion, if it's anger or tears or fear or whatever, it's okay to have it. And I gave myself permission to be fearful for many months, and I said to myself, no, this is genuinely how I feel. Genuinely how I feel. I'm not going to tell myself I just need to put it away, it's not valued. No. But then I got to the point where I went, okay, I've had enough, right? It's like eating too much cheesecake. You're like, okay, I've had enough. I'm full. I don't feel, it was fun in the beginning, but now not so much. And so then it was like you said, don't stay in that space, because that builds up as well. We've honored the emotion, but we know it's uncomfortable. So we need to switch something so that we're not in that state of discomfort anymore. And that's kind of where that change comes. But when we talk of healing, let's face it, we all need help. I've needed help. I'm sure that you've needed help. Clients come to you because they're having problems, or, even if it's just something small and physical, because sometimes we can't solve our problems ourselves and we need help from others. And I think when people in this community, when we say, I'm going to do a healing, or would you like some healing? That's because we all get stuck and we need help. I mean, do you not agree with that?
Well, yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think we all need help sometimes, for sure.
So is that what made you move into wanting to do the healings? Or, I mean, what was besides you having that awareness, what was the spark that said, hey, I want to do this?
To be honest, it was current events.
Okay.
I kind of had an inkling, because like I said, it's like, healing has always been sort of the byproduct of what we've done. It was never the original intention. I am not Reiki trained professional. So do I really know what I'm doing? No, I went entirely into an experimental mind state where it's like, let's just see what happens. I've done it before, like, for example, for my own pets, on myself. So, I mean, I know that energetic healing works. When like my first experience with an energetic healing, I didn't expect to feel anything. I didn't know what to expect from it.
Right.
And yet I did feel different, and I did feel better. And so kind of knowing those things gave me a little bit of confidence to be like, well, let's see what we can do for people. And in doing so, like, because of that intention, I learned, a new trick, or like I learned new stuff. I got new information from my guides because my intention had changed. Instead of going into astral just to clear someone, I'm going into astral strictly to heal this person. And I, every single time I go into astral, whether it's a case or a healing or whatnot, I learn something.
Oh,
something.
Sure. I get that. Yeah. I mean, it's like each time I do, sit with someone, whether it's just a conversation or a reading or something like that, I'm as much a student of the situation as anything. Yeah. I get. Yeah.
So really, like I said, I was inspired because of past successes that were kind of unintentional. How successful can I be if I'm fully intentional on strictly healing? Right.
Absolutely. Right.
So that was kind of the motivation, is to see, like, well, what can I do?
Exactly. And like you said, you admitted that you're still learning. And I gotta say though, I wish you'd stop saying I'm not a Reiki trained professional. First of all, I'm not trying to poo-poo Reiki. I think that there are so many different other energy and healing modalities out there that is just, so that's irrelevant. Just forget that. It's like, I can't believe she's saying that. I'm not saying that Reiki doesn't work, and I'm not saying that Reiki isn't wonderful, but it's like, it's like that. There's people that just have a natural talent. I mean, if you look at Charlie Goldsmith, he, from Australia, he had a show that was on, I think it was Lifetime or Discovery, where
he's the coolest.
He's called the healer. He simply has been born with that ability from a very young age. He kind of poo-pooed it a little bit and then eventually got really into it and started utilizing it more. He's self-taught. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being self-taught in a skill set. That's not to say he hasn't learned, but a big majority of his has been through self-teaching. I do think that education is important, obviously. But anyway, so
I do too.
I just don't want you to downplay yourself.
Experience is where it's at, and
absolutely,
I've had experience in healing on accident. So it's like, okay, well, if I can heal people on accident, what will happen if I try to heal them on purpose?
No, and I agree with you in the sense that, it's true that there's nothing wrong with experience and then balancing that with some education. But it's to say that I've been level 1 Reiki trained, and I have healing is not my modality. I took a class, I became attuned, but to say that I have the ability, no. So just because somebody has a certificate on the wall doesn't necessarily mean that they've really integrated that. I think the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Yeah.
Can that person offer assistance? And we are always growing and evolving. And one of the things that I want to do too is I belong to a healing group on Facebook, and I actually wrote them and I said, okay, ladies, I'm going to do a podcast and I want to know the healing modalities that are out there. And this is a group of like 160, almost all of them are female. And I ended up with this enormous list of different healing modalities. I had heard of some that I had never heard of before.
Really?
Almost all of them are working to create the same result. The only thing that's different is the manner in which they're facilitating the healing. That's it.
Interesting.
So, anyway, I'm going to put a list of that in our show notes because I want people to be able to kind of look at some of those. Do you want me to read some of them off? I mean, does it?
Yeah. What are they?
Let's see. These were the major ones that I got, which was quantum touch, the Bengston method, Reiki, matrix energetics, sound and Solfeggio frequencies, Herbalism, which really isn't energy based, but Tai Chi and Qigong, Acupuncture, which again, it works with meridians in the body, whether or not that's an energetic or a nerve based thing, I don't know. There's integrated healing, Theta healing, access bars of consciousness. Never heard of that one.
Access bars of consciousness.
Yeah. Pranic and Shamanic healing. There's tapping, the Brennan healing method, touch therapy, coherence healing. So anyway, I started listening to all these ladies and I'm thinking every one of them offers some form of healing or intervention process. Because we're not healing people. We're offering some type of process that helps intervene with what's going on and shift things into potentially moving in a more healing direction.
Right.
Ultimately, I think the healing honestly happens with the body and from something greater than ourselves.
Right.
So, I mean, do you not agree with that? That's kind of a sidebar because you're really facilitating a process, but you're not doing the healing.
Right. So I think all I do is kind of shed this layer of onion. And then in turn, hopefully that gives that person like the recognition that, oh, this layer has been removed, and to like not bring it back upon themselves.
Right. Key point.
Yeah, that was told to me, when I had my first experience with an energetic healing was like, I can remove this all day long.
Right.
But if you don't yourself, have awareness of what the root of the problem is or the chakra, because for me at that time it was my throat chakra.
We're just regenerating the same problem. Right.
Right. Then you will just continue to, or eventually it will go back to the way it was because you haven't done anything to really change that, that vibration for yourself. So
very important note. Yeah.
Right. So if someone tells you that your throat chakra is blocked, it means you're not expressing yourself enough. You are keeping it all in. And what does that do? We know that
suppression
manifests issues into your body. So what would I do? I would tell that person, if you have a closed throat chakra, you need to express yourself more. You need to say what's on your mind. Do it in a healthy way. But people that have overactive chakras can be the opposite, where they talk too much and they don't know when to shut up, and they can just be la 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 la, and they're very bombarding, and you notice that. So it's important to know that you can have an overactive chakra as well as an underactive chakra, and those things will manifest differently for different people. So it's all about balance. It's all about being aware of thyself. Once again, what are your thoughts? What are your emotions? What are your energetic levels, etc.? What's normal for you? And then when you go and you have an energetic healing, take note. How do you feel now? Do you feel more grounded? Are you getting better sleep? Are you getting worse sleep? Is there something that you're not addressing still, or whatever it is? So that's why, inevitably meditation, we go back to it.
It's that accountability.
The question is, all I'm doing is I'm relieving you of this initial layer. I flush you with light or rainbows, because that was one of the things that I learned was by doing this healing, was that rainbows was where it's at. And the reason for that, I believe, is the fact that it's attacking basically all of your chakras at the same time. So whatever it is that you needed the most at that time, those spectrums of light are hitting, and each one has a different purpose for you. So again, it's what you needed, not what I was trying to do for you, because I don't necessarily know what that might be. Your body will take that in and do with it what it needs to. And so there's also a grounding that I do for people, because I think that grounding is the number one way people can really pull the earth healing energy into themselves. If you're not properly grounded, then you're probably not like energetically very healthy. Let's just
so you'll do that for people as well then?
Yes. So I will ground them, and like I don't, it's like I ground, and then I also kind of attach the crown to the divine, so that there's this flow, right?
Yeah. And I've heard most people that do healings do that from that dual perspective. That's very common from what I understand.
Right. So in that way, it's connecting them both to heaven and earth, and then they are able to now reconnect themselves to this healing energy that has nothing to do with me. It's their own energies.
Right.
So I'm just kind of helping facilitate their own energy flow. That's it.
Yep. And I think you bring up a really excellent point about the accountability. And that was something that I'm going to give an example. I remember that I was volunteering in that healing group to do readings for people. And one of the gals who does healing got on there, and she said, "This is a healing group. You should not be doing that." And I went, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "I don't know what kind of psychic or mediumship sessions you've had." I said, "But mine are all about healing, all about facilitating healing." I said, "First of all," I said, "if someone hears from a loved one, how is that not healing? How is that not a transformative experience? In addition to that, when I do psychic readings, I'm there to talk with people about what's going on with them, right? What's happening mentally? What's happening emotionally? Where are they feeling heavy to me? And then I'm here to give them information and to provide insight on what they're doing so that they can fix it. Because I think you're right. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'm having a pain, so I'm just going to get an energy healing and have somebody fix it. And then they just go right back to living their life. Oh, now I've got this pain, I'm going to go grab an energy healing. Well, same thing that people do with doctors, right? Can you just give me a pill? Can you just give me a Band-Aid?
Right. And then it becomes a Band-Aid solution.
That's right. And so then I think that healers, psychics, and mediums need to do the same thing. Are we being conscientious and ethical with our work in the sense that we're not just being that Band-Aid for people? Are we giving them insights and awareness that allow them to make those transitions so they're not recreating the same problem, which is what you're talking about?
Right.
Like, I think, and so in the long run, we took the argument offline to the moderator, and she said, you're both working with energy. She goes, I can see how both of you, and the moderator had actually had a session with me that she really enjoyed. Okay. And so she basically said, I have no problems with what Carol does. And then that lady apologized and then backed off. Yeah. Not had a session with me. But I think that's because people tend to think, oh, well, you're doing a psychic reading, so you're just telling me if my move tomorrow is going to go well, or what's going on with my love life.
It is healing.
Yeah.
No, it is. I'm just going to stop you right there.
I know we disagree on that.
No, it's healing because honestly, how much of my emotional burdens have now been lifted because you just gave me some sort of comfort in knowing that my loved one is still alive.
Yeah, but I was talking about kind of that future telling stuff. Remember, I think that sometimes people think of psychic readings as more entertainment I actually had somebody say that to me last week. I thought psychic was just entertainment. And I'm going, what? This is not for entertainment. This is for value, to help people see things and give them insights so that they may heal and grow and transform. That is a healing modality. We just don't think of it that way. If we're doing our psychic work, I think in the appropriate manner, it is most definitely healing, and it gives people the awareness. I like it better because then I'm giving people the awareness for them to change themselves, because I've seen people sometimes use energy healers again as the Band-Aid, as the pill.
Right.
Not to say that we don't need that, because people, and I don't know, like for you did a healing. I said, sure, let's do it. Right. Because I'm like, I didn't have anything specific in mind. I didn't know when you were doing the healing, which I loved. And then that night, yes, it was in a dream, but this was crazy. This was one of those surreal dreams. It wasn't like just a dream. And it was like there was a part of my personality that fractured off. And I was able to view that energetic fracture and look at it and go, wow. It was almost like an energetic peeling off of some aspect of my personality that was negative.
Right.
And the next morning I woke up and I had an insight. I had an awareness. And I remember saying to you, I'm quite certain that you facilitated that happening, even though it wasn't your goal. Your goal was just to send me whatever I needed.
Right.
I had the insight, and then you and I discussed it, and I said, but I have the choice as to whether or not I'm going to do something about that insight that resulted from the healing. Exactly. I became responsible for the healing sticking. So I think that that's a good example.
That's a great example.
Do you find that people are using you yet kind of as that Band-Aid, and are you coaching around that, or have you had that problem yet?
I haven't really worked on enough people to have that problem yet. But what's funny is that I've had that problem in the past with clients with just regular, spirits. Like I've had that problem before, but not in the same way.
I wasn't sure. Yeah. That's a good thing. Yeah.
At least not yet. I mean, and like I said, I'm still experimenting. So,
right. No, absolutely.
I don't really know everything yet. And I've just kind of been going with the flow and seeing what works. I think my biggest problem right now is trying to get people to, I guess, maybe give me the good feedback that I need, or maybe they don't notice, either what's happening. Right. So it's kind of, trial and error. There's been a few times where I've done healings for people and they've been like, oh my God, like it's instantly like working.
Right.
And I'm like, really? That's so cool. And then maybe the next day they call me back and they're like, oh, it's hurting again. And I'm like, okay. So if that counts, then yes, maybe. But for this particular person, it was just like, I'm actually glad that they said that because I needed to know how long it lasts. I needed to know,
right,
you know, certain things. And it just helps me learn. So
I understand. I wasn't sure. I just think that it's,
but I can see that happening as far as like, oh,
it does.
You know, I don't feel good. Could you send me some healing?
Right.
It's like,
it's the same thing, you know, when people do psychic sessions, and that's something that, you know, we talk about. And as people get more developed and they start doing more sessions and sitting with individuals, is there's that ethical consideration of, is that person becoming self-reliant on you? You know, it's kind of like the person who goes to the doctor all the time, fix me, fix me, fix me, and then has no accountability for their own healing process.
right.
And so the same thing takes place both in energy healing and in psychic or mediumship sessions as well. You know, we can be facilitating, but that person that's there has to be a part of the solution. And we've talked about that in previous videos before, when you even go in paranormal cases.
I was going to say, it's the same thing for paranormal.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if the living is the person that's creating the scenario in the home, they have to resolve that themselves.
Even if they're not creating it. So it's
what way?
Still, well, I mean, if I tell you need to sage your place and you don't do it, or you need to do this or you need to do that and you don't do it, and then you come back and you say, oh, I still have problems, whose fault is that?
Okay. No, I can see that. That's fair. That's like the doctor telling you, look, you know, you need to stop drinking the sodas and put down the potato chips and, you know, maybe get outside and get some sunshine and some walking. And then they come back and haven't done any of that. So that is definitely.
So it's the same thing.
An accountability to healing.
Right. And in energetic, it's a little bit different because let's say it's your root chakra, right? And what is your root chakra? That's all your stability. That's your actions, stuff like that. But really, what does that chakra represent, and how do you need to fix it? Is it overactive or is it underactive? And so by understanding what that chakra is and does, then you can make the steps and decisions in your life to how to fix it and keep it maintained in a way that's healthy. So, for example, how do I keep myself energetically healthy? Well, I am actually not that good at meditation all the time. And I'm the first one to admit that I have to be disciplined about it.
I was going to say it depends on the person, right? Because we're all different. Absolutely.
But what I will do is make sure that I'm taking even just like 10 minutes out of my showering time to energetically, you know, add light to my chakras as I'm washing myself, because you just do it all at the same time, instead of trying to, oh, I got to take a shower and then I got to meditate and then it's like, just incorporate it into your life. So before you're going to bed at night, take, you know, if you can't sleep, well, that's a perfect time to meditate because you can't sleep, right? In the morning when you wake up, if you happen to wake up before your alarm goes off, use that time as a meditative space, you know, for whatever it is that you need.
Shower's a good one as well. I think that's a great example because you know, I know you made that suggestion to me. We're all in the shower. You have 5-10 minutes, 20 if you're me.
Right.
Other than worry or stew about what's happened in the day, you know, it's your shower. Just do something with that space. But you know, you bring up some interesting points though, and it makes me think too, because it's easy for us in the sense that we are sensitive, right? We're psychics or mediums or we're energy healers, whatever you relate with. But let's face it, a lot of the population is not there yet. A lot of people are like, I don't know what my energy's like. I don't understand all of that. What do you mean I need to do this or I need to do that? They can't feel their energy. This is another reason why I think people reach out for people like us to maybe assist in a variety of different ways. I'm not considering myself energy healer per se, but
you're a different type of healer. You could say that.
yeah, exactly. But I think that's the whole point, is that there's so many different healing options out there. The sound healing, I used to poo-poo the sound healing, and I thought there's nothing to that. And then I started doing more reading and more studying. And there's a great presentation at the parapsychological convention that I was just at a few weeks ago, where this guy talks about frequencies and how they cause the body to resonate or vibrate at a particular frequency. So once I started hearing the science about it, I went, oh, there really is something to sound healing. It's not woo-woo, it's science.
It's science. I know. It's so funny.
It's just that woo-woo people got it before the science people got it. And so now support each other. So if you don't know your energy, I guess is the point I'm getting at, and you're saying, look, I'm not into all of that, then you can do something as benign as connecting with sound, with connecting with frequency. The Schumann resonance is a big one. Basically it's the frequency of nature.
Right.
What is it? The 432 hertz, I believe it is. Is that the Schumann resonance?
The Schumann resonance, as far as I know, it fluctuates a lot. And sometimes you're actually more like at its mercy than you are anything else.
But you can actually go to YouTube though, and you can get that frequency, and you can literally just sit and relax to that sound. You don't have to go.
There's so many on YouTube. Right now, what I'm doing as far as the healing is concerned is using the 528.
Oh, 528. Okay, my mistake.
Yeah. And then, but I'm also learning about that. And there's a bunch of different frequencies that I'm wanting to experiment with.
Right.
Like I just found one for pain like a couple of days ago, and I was like, why wasn't I using that?
But that's the whole point of sound healing. And that's what the sound healers have already known, is that those frequencies help reset the body into different states or work with different aspects. It's not woo-woo. It's just science.
It really is.
And it's like, if you don't believe the science, go look for it. There are people out there that are doing all kinds of studies and talking about it. It's there.
Yeah.
So I guess the point I'm saying is if you're not sensitive to your own energy and you're not quite sure what to do or how to do it, find something that you feel resonates with you. If it's just listening to sounds of the ocean or frequencies, you can do that. So it doesn't have to be woo-woo. It can be something more natural or easier for you to relate to.
I do think that you can't get around energetic healing without being able to ground properly. So that is a thing. And I noticed that in astral, sometimes people have, they have blockages like in their hand chakras and in their feet chakras. And the ones in the feet get clogged the most. Not sure why, but it also makes it harder for people to ground. So by being able to ground, you actually are able to create your own energetic flow. And that is what you want. That is how you keep your energetic body clean and free of, negativity, is just by keeping this flow. I mean, yes, you want it to be a high vibrational flow, but it's like that grounding is where it starts. Period.
And I agree with you. But again, I think that's woo-woo for a lot of people if they don't understand how to do that or what it is, so.
Yes, okay. Well, I wrote a huge long blog about grounding, and you can find it on Astro.
I know you did. And I'll put that in there. But again, I think it's just the point that it can be woo-woo for some people. But, there's also, you're hearing more people talk about earthing right now, which is, it actually grounding.
Grounding.
It does ground people, but it just does it in a more, it's less woo-woo, right? It's very.
How is that less woo-woo?
It's because they're not seeing it from a frequency or energetic perspective. They're seeing it at the physical dimension. They're seeing it as a connection between the earth and the feet and the skin, like our ancestors did.
Yeah, that's good too.
It is.
I mean, that's part of it.
But that's what I'm saying. For people who don't want to be woo-woo, and there are some people who don't want to be woo-woo. That's okay. It still works. And that's the only thing that matters is, does it work? Right?
Does it work? Yeah. really. Get
So
over the woo-woo factor, and does it work is the best.
I guess the point is I think people need to pick the methodology that is comfortable for them. And some people will have methodologies that are easier and more resonant for them. So
I agree.
That's the only point that I'm trying to
agree. And I gave many, many examples on how grounding is not woo-woo and the ways that you can do it in your daily life.
And I'll be sure in the show notes to put a link down to that blog post again so that people can kind of go there and check that out.
Yeah.
But the point is I don't want people to get frustrated and say, well, you know, I'm not into all this woo-woo stuff, but I'm interested in maybe getting some healing or doing some of that kind of stuff. And it's like, you can find the method that works for you. That's why I gave an example of sound. You know, if you're not into meditation, then, you know, for me, journaling is very healing in its own right because I'm detached. I can get my emotions out. So you can find very healing methodologies that don't have to be woo-woo in nature. You're still releasing the energy. True. You're still releasing the energy when you're journaling.
Like I said, the punching bag, that's healthy.
Exactly. So you can have a variety of modalities for healing. They don't have to be energy based, but because we are talking about energy healing and that is an aspect of it, obviously we're addressing some of that today. So
right. Yeah, no, that's right on the money.
Okay, so I think we've kind of covered everything we really wanted to just kind of discuss today about healing. I mean, you feel pretty complete?
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Gotcha. It was just kind of a basic primer on what energy healing is, the very different varieties that are out there. And again, I'll put some of those ones that we read off in the show notes as well. And to get you guys thinking about the fact that you can get valuable healing, but ultimately it also starts inside with ourselves and being accountable and making those changes. So I'm glad that you wanted to do this show. I hope people get some value out of it. And we hope everybody joins us for the next episode. So thanks so much. Bye.